from Pop Culture with Pat, here with John Brotherton today, talking about his latest film, Chosen Family. Great to meet you, John, and thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Pat, man. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, no worries. So, yeah, to start things off, so Anne has a line in this film where she's talking about her chosen family. I'm curious for you, outside of your main family, who is your chosen family, and why do they mean so much to you?
Well, it's funny because as an actor, you move to LA, and everyone has most people have a very common story. They're like pilgrims from somewhere back home, right? Like some small town in some city or whatever. And they were the kid with the dream that decided to spread their wings and fly and go to LA to chase some crazy thing. Especially back when I did it 20 some years ago before social media, before you could become famous out of your basement, right? Like now it used to be like a pilgrimage to go to either New York or LA if you wanted to chase this crazy dream that everyone's like, you're nuts. So in doing that, you meet a lot of people when you get to LA that become your chosen family. And the irony of it, my really good group of friends that I met when I first moved to LA were the result of an acting class it was the first acting class in LA. And that group of friends to this day is not only some of my best friends, but my wife is one of them. And we've been married 16 years, together 20 years. We got our teacher of that class ordained. That's who married us. And my wife's best friend, two best girlfriends to this day are out of that same group. So, and my
Wow,
cousin was in that group. So it's just like immediately became our chosen family in LA. And that's literally Thanksgiving. That's who would have been at all of our Thanksgivings. Because in LA, like I didn't have any family in LA. My wife was from the East Coast. I was from the Northwest. So, and like you quickly become, my chosen family became these friends in LA, and they were at all my holiday events, and then eventually at my wedding and and so they're both chosen and now real family. Uh,
that's really crazy how the world can work sometimes, just how that kind of all falls into place.
it's so true. And it literally, I mean, I met them 2 months into being in LA, and now here we are 20 some years later, and like, they're still my peeps.
Yeah, and speaking of two, so you're being a dad girl yourself, what did you kind of bring from that experience to this character that you play in the movie?
Well, there was two things that I loved about it. Being a girl dad is like my favorite thing on the planet. I just like my girls are my everything. But what I really loved about the movie is the realistic element because I'm used to doing a lot of rom-coms that have a very happy ending, which is great. It's fun for the audience. They're easy to watch, and I appreciate being a part of them. They're like yummy for the tummy. But I was so attracted to a story that was very realistic that like sometimes shit doesn't work out. Like two
Yeah.
people can be madly in love and it's just not right because timing isn't right or circumstances isn't right. And so for me, it was really about taking where I am in life right now because I have these like adolescent girls. I have a 12 and a 14-year-old. I've been married for 16 years. I'm fortunate enough to be like happily married. But what if was my whole thing in this movie? It was like, what if in my life my world will get turned upside down. And now I'm faced with raising my daughters that no matter what would be my priority, no matter how, just like Ella Grace's character, ridiculous and how much you almost want to just like, oh, you're so frustrated with them. I mean, she's almost, honestly, she's like the nemesis in the movie. Like this child becomes like the nemesis of Anne. But at the same time, she always had to be my priority. Otherwise, you would
Yeah.
hate Steve. Like she could be as awful as she wants to be. If Steve ever turned his back on his child, Anne would fall out of love with him. So it was like this
Yeah.
weird thing. Like, the things that Anne loved about him were also the things that like made her, pushed her away. Like the thing, you know what I mean? So for me, it was just a really fun job as an actor to take some of these happy things that I'm used to and go, what if? What if the shit hit the fan? And I needed to now find, a new love life and then balance, the trail of heartache behind me. And like that's truly what Steve in the film was stuck doing. And so I just that the realism behind that I was super attracted to as an actor. And then Heather's so wonderful. She just made it all fall into place.
I love the back and forth between all your characters too, and specifically, I was laughing out loud several times throughout the movie. Specifically, the dance scene between the two characters, and you just have to kind of sit there, and it's just like super uncomfortable but hilarious, at the same time. Probably one of
which
my
it
favorite
wasn't when we
scenes in the
shot
movie.
it. I mean, you can imagine shooting that scene. It was like perfectly uncomfortable. And
Yeah,
what I've said, I just said this previously, like when you feel something as an actor in a scene, that's the gold,
yeah.
right? There's plenty of scenes that you do that are exposition and it moves the movie along or moves the TV show along and you get through it and then you move on to the next scene and that's the job of an actor. But then there are scenes that you're in and you truly feel what's going on. There was no way not to feel that awkward tension when Ella Grace and Heather Graham are having a dance off, a legitimate dance off in front of me. Like it was I knew that scene was going to be. Everyone walked away like, "Oh, that's the scene."
Yeah.
Like that's the scene. Because it was so real in its execution. There was nothing fake about it. I mean, it was like it was. And Heather went for. I was so proud of her. It was like you find these things, you just that's why you're who you are. It was like she was not ashamed to totally go for it and quote maybe make a fool out of herself or whatever it was, but it was genius and it was so I was so grateful. She just totally went for it, and it made it so perfectly uncomfortable for my character.
You
And
could tell you
and
guys were having fun.
then we were able to build. And Heather was good at this, allowing a little improv to happen too. So some of the lines she allowed us to kind of throw out in the moment, and a lot of them, made it to the movie. But yeah, to answer your question, it was so fun, but so truly awkward. But that was why I knew it was good because I felt uncomfortable.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
what makes it. And yeah, speaking of Heather, just getting to work opposite, her, what was it like working with her, developing the relationship between your characters, and what does she bring as a scene partner that you just, really appreciate?
she's Heather Graham.
There you go. That's
I mean,
good.
come on, dude. Let's be honest. You know what I'm saying? It's Heather freaking Graham. But honestly, she surpassed any sort of like preconceived notion I would have had of like Heather Graham, the pinup girl, right? Like she was the sweetest, most caring, earnest, loving person that, almost to a point where you're like, do you ever crack? Like, do you ever have a bad day? What's your secret, girl? She says she gets like 12 hours of sleep at night. I'm like, okay, I get it. That's a secret. Because in the entirety of the movie, and there were some challenging circumstances. She was wearing a lot of hats. She's in every scene. She was in every scene, and you're dealing. And then she's a producer and dealing with the stuff that as I never even had to worry about because as an actor you're sort of insulated from that stuff. But when you're doing both, that BS that's happening behind the scenes, and she never brought it to set. She never once cracked. Not a diva moment. Not even an acceptable, understandable diva moment where you'd have been like, she deserved that diva moment. There was not even once, not even a brush of it. And so I just admired the love that she makes sure that she provides to everyone around her. She just wants everyone around her to be happy, truly.
And as a director too, like you said, she had to wear, multiple hats for this film. What makes her stand out as a director for you overall?
She surrounds herself with people she loves and trusts, and then she lets them do their job. And the best directors I've ever worked with do that. They don't micromanage or they surround James Wan, I've got to work with. That's what he does. He surrounds himself with people that he loves and he trusts, and he lets them do their job. It's like his job was putting them in place, and now let them do their job. And then be there to support them in whatever they need, but they listen. And like Heather had that same quality, totally different style of director, but always was willing to listen, always allowed your opinion to be heard, let you do whatever you wanted to do. If then, give it your try. If maybe it wasn't the one she was looking for, we could do it another way. But she never stifled a suggestion, an idea. And so that just frees you up as an actor. You're able to just play and be your authentic self and bring everything. Then you just stop thinking. And when you're not thinking, it's like,
This makes it so
it
much easier.
total.
Well, hey, John, I just want to say
Heather
thank
Graham.
Yeah, man, she's Heather Graham. I mean, yeah, exactly. I just want to say thank you so much for your time today. It was wonderful getting to chat with you and make sure everyone, you guys check out Chosen Family once it hits theaters and on demand on October 11th. Thanks, John.
I appreciate you, man.